generally speaking, I'll get to the roastery at 4 or just after 4, and it's quiet. I can sort of think clearly. I can see where I'm at. I can see what needs to be done and hasn't been done, and I can then get an understanding of what I want to do for the day as well.
Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Richard Thompson. Today's guest is Tim Adams. Tim is a really well-known coffee roaster here on the Sunshine Coast, and he has developed a brand and a business that has come from roasting 750 kilos a week of coffee all the way up to 6 ton per week. It's a fascinating story. I hope you really enjoy it. So let's get into it. I'll now say welcome to the show, Tim Adams. Because we sort of jumped in.
We've been chatting for 20 minutes already.
But to that point of what your
Thanks for having me, by the way.
No, you're very welcome. As we discussed a month or so ago, I first had your coffee in Nambour back in 2013.
Yeah.
And was instantly drawn to it and loved it. And so to be able to, it's a little bit of a fanboy moment to have you in the studio.
That's pretty special. Yeah, that's
because you know, if you're on the Sunshine Coast or anywhere else in I guess in Queensland and parts of Australia, particularly here,
yeah,
you're everywhere. Every cafe or a lot of cafes have it. So today's conversation, I can't wait to unpack the whole journey to get you here, but also your views on quality and control and the creative process that you've been on. I guess we talked just then about the drive, or at least the purpose.
Yeah.
What does sustainable and community focused mean to you and Tim Adams Specialty Coffee?
Yeah. See, if you say that sustainability and community focused, your mind automatically takes you to your hometown where you live, right? It goes deeper than that for us. We have so much responsibility as a company to be at the forefront of specialty coffee. Now that is everywhere. Like, that is not in your own backyard. It is, but it's not. We have to go deeper than that. And if we don't, we're in jeopardy of taking advantage of our industry. So what I mean by that is I personally travel to origin to get to the ground roots of where coffee is grown, to get my hands into the soil, to get my shoes dirty, to walk up, mountains, to travel for 40 hours to get to that destination and that origin of where the coffee comes from. And my responsibility, my company's responsibility, is to bring that all the way back and put it into a cup of coffee, where someone like yourself will drink it in 2013 and instantly fall in love with that coffee, and you don't even have a clue about what's happened before that. So we need to, as a company, to remain like community focus, as in the simplest things such as barista education and teaching baristas the craft, all the way back to the sustainability factor, which is making sure our farmers are paid correctly, are understanding what affects their crop, giving them the feedback of what it is like in our countries or anywhere around the globe of all these wonderful people drinking cups of coffee. From their farm. Like, I could just talk about those two things alone for the entire podcast, but obviously I won't. I want to try and give you as much as I can, but that is... They're the two raw things. Like, we don't alter that. It's understanding what the consumer wants and understanding how to deliver that through the barista's words.
You've just come back from Central America.
I have, yeah.
What is it like on the ground? Explain it to us. I've never been to Central America. Oh, I've been to Guatemala and Belize.
Yeah.
But other than that, and it wasn't to a coffee plantation.
Yeah. Okay. I get starstruck going there, right? Because for the number of years, like dating back before my first Origin trip, which was 2015 was my first Origin trip.
That's some 5 years after starting.
Correct.
The brand.
5 years. Yeah. So it was a bit of an eye opener for me, because I'd been, what I thought I knew about specialty coffee changed when I was there. What I thought I knew about direct trade coffee changed when I was there. And what I thought a coffee farmer did, and what I had in my head as perception after being in coffee for a number of years, changed when I was there.
Wow.
And to this day, it's my very first contact with Honduras, it was the country that was still my favorite origin trip. My very first one is still my favorite, but it's also my go-to place when I get lost in coffee or what I'm doing. I go back, I take myself back there because it's absolutely stunning. If you picture in your head King Kong's mountain, like massive fucking mountain in the middle of Honduras, clouds, across the top of them. Green as how really rich volcanic soil, like red dirt, like the reddest you've ever seen, and you're at the bottom of it. But not only that, you've just travelled 40 hours to get to that point.
Sure.
Right? So, the transit is tiring. So it's an effort to get to origin. It's an effort. And it pisses me off that a lot of roasting companies don't do it and don't do it more often. They say they're doing direct trade. It's bullshit. It's not direct trade coffee. It's relationship coffee is what we do because many hands touch that coffee before we get to it.
Yeah.
It's not just direct. And that's a perception I had in my head when I was a little bit naive about that. But being there on the ground, you travel for 40 hours and you get in another car, you land in Honduras, and then you're getting another car for a 4-hour drive. And we went, to the first region we went to it's called Santa Barbara. It's a place we went to for a specific reason as well, because it's a place where their harvest period happens very late, so that the way the climate is over there in that particular region, most of the coffees, say, harvest in February, March, then they're sort of done in Honduras. Santa Barbara happens sort of later, so we're talking late April, sometimes even May.
Because of the change of climate?
Because of the climate in that specific area. Yeah. So that they have really cold nights, so that the cherries have really slow development of sugar maturation, and that sugar development obviously makes a really sweet, delicious, beautiful cup. Very high altitude. We're talking like 1,800, 1,900 meters above sea level. So getting there is like it takes your breath away because you're getting altitude sort of height as well, and dealing with that, and you're fatigued from traveling. But when you're there, you just awake the entire trip. Like you're running on 2 or 3 hours sleep because your adrenaline's so intent and you're so at the source of where this coffee comes from that it's like this is one of the best places on earth for a coffee professional. The reason we're there is because you've got commodity coffee and you've got specialty coffee, and most buyers of coffee will go just after harvest. They'll build a container from that country, for example, Honduras. The container gets filled and then it's, exported a month or two later. The problem is with the late harvest coffees, they're not aligned with those containers. So a lot of buyers want to move those containers a lot earlier in the year, or almost immediately, right, just after harvest. Mm-hmm. And harvest, you've got to prep the coffee, you've got to mill it, you've got to get it bagged and tagged to get it, essentially ready for freight. The late harvest coffees we're getting lost in the system where basically there's no buyers for that coffee. And we're talking very high-end specialty coffee. So the purpose of that trip was to start a platform. We went over with a number of roasters to get them to understand this late harvest cycle. So then we would be prepared to go over later, build a smaller container, pay more in order to get that coffee to get shipped, to get in, to whatever country it needed to go to. The problem is that a lot of these producers there were selling their coffee not to roasters or specialty coffee market because it was a late harvest. They were selling it internally within Honduras just for the local market, where they were getting 50 cents to $1 per pound. We go there and pay up to $5, $5.50 USD per pound. Wow. So a big difference in their livelihood. So, fast forward now and those coffees are getting purchased and people are delaying their shipments just to get those coffees, into containers. So, that was my sort of very first experience at Origin and in Honduras. And I now own a farm in that region because I'm so passionate about the understanding coffee,
How do the farmers get their head around that bean is coming to Australia and that's getting put to the consumers here?
I think now, because they're I guess over the years they're very used to a lot of buyers going in and visiting them, but it took them a long time to trust, and trust that we're going there for good purposes as well. We're going there to cup your coffee, to taste it, to give you feedback, direct feedback, and tell you what we want and what we're going to pay for it. If you can look a producer in the eye and tell them, look, I'm prepared to pay for your coffee up front, even sometimes because it's so special, just do these things to the cherries to make sure they're wonderful, and you've got guaranteed buyers for years and years to come. So it's taken a number of years to get to that point, and there's still producers who are gun shy from that. It's easy just to sell it into the local market because they know they can sell it, but they just get into this cycle of selling it below cost production, and then this vicious cycle of selling your product at an inferior price. Big companies will come in and just buy it from the local market. And
surprised that big companies haven't gone and bought out farms.
Yeah, I think
they're still locally owned.
90, a lot are. A lot are, but a lot of cherries are sold to larger exporting companies within countries, sure. And then the big buyers come in and grab it. Yeah, they're controlling it. Yeah, so getting producers to understand that sort of relationship building rather than just selling it to anyone is it's been challenging, but there's been a really nice education process throughout countries now to very, very much so through Central America in particular for producers to actually understand how we expect the coffee to be and get them to trained on tasting coffee. Because a lot of them don't taste it.
How does the taste differ between the continents? So if you go to Ethiopia versus South America.
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopia is a special place too. Like it has natural florality in the coffee. It's perfumey, it's sweet, it's delicate, it's fruity, it's different, and that's just from the pure terroir of the region. You go, even in Africa, you go to Kenya, and all the coffees then become a lot bolder. And then you go from sweet floral coffees to very jammy coffees, like big, rich blackberry flavors and plum and red currants and beautiful acidities and, passion fruit. But then you go to Central America and your coffees are very chocolatey and can be fruity, but then it depends on what part of the mountain it's grown on. So wildly different. Even within the country, it's wildly different. Yeah.
All right, take me back.
Okay, sorry.
Don't apologise.
We're definitely not at the beginning.
No. You grew up in a household where your dad was in the Navy.
Correct. Yeah.
And how was that? You would have been moving around a bit, or was he stationed primarily?
From memory, we moved around a little bit. We spent a bit of time in Sydney, spent a bit of time in Nowra, where I was born.
Didn't go to Jervis Bay?
Yep, I think Dad was in Jervis Bay before I went there.
Right.
Before I was born. Before I was, around. So at Cuttable in Sydney, he was based for a number of years, and then he got a nice job up in Cairns, where we're at HMAS Cairns for 2 or 3 years, and then back to Sydney, predominantly in the Sydney sort of area. Yeah.
And then once you grew up through that experience, you and your brother went into Navy as well?
Also, yeah. So once Dad got out of the Navy, so back then it was you did your 20 years, and then at the 20-year mark you get a standard pension, and then that's paid out to you, for years to come. Yeah, but now it's superannuation, so it's set up exactly like any other employee. So that's why a lot of military people aren't staying for the long term, because the incentives are the same. They're not, you may grow in rank and get a little bit more wage, but ultimately after 20 odd years, you're probably sick of it and you want to get out, and there's no real nest egg left. You sort of just fall back into getting normal super. So Dad got out, so we spent most of our schooling in Hervey Bay, and at that time there wasn't a lot of sort of opportunities, I guess, back then. So my brother, joined the Navy. I had 4 uncles in the Navy, 4 or 5 cousins in the Navy, and it was like, I left school and my mum and dad basically turned to me and said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm going to join the Navy." I've tried to find employment and I haven't, but I was, a mad cricket fan and a mad rugby league fan. So I played, I hadn't actually had a proper job until I actually joined the Navy. So I was, very much looked after by my parents and they sort of, they taught me that you can do whatever you want, but long as you're happy and we're there to support you. So I guess those core values of looking after me and making me, make my own decisions and my own calls and play my own sport. There was no pressure. It was just a nice structured, but also, very, very fair sort of way to grow up. I had no issue joining the Navy. I think it was, look, to be honest with you, I think everyone should have some sort of mandatory service, maybe a year or 2 years or something after they finish school, because you do find a lot of people get a little bit lost when they graduate. They sort of, don't really know where they're going to go or what they're going to do, so they defer and then they fall into, fall into something and they may not be super passionate or keen on it. So I was quite lucky because everything that I do, I want to do it well. That's
Where
it.
does that come from? Because when I've spoken to you in the past, that very much comes out. That if there's any control factor that you have, it's to be done with the highest quality. Focused. Where does that come from, do you think?
I think it just comes from, I mean, my mum's got a German background, so they're very, very black and white and needs to be very, very quite strict and stern. And, my pop was a lovely fella and I respected him a lot, but he had this amazing care factor about people and talking to people. And I think I sort of drew a little bit from him, and then you combine that with a bit of German structure, and I think it was just a nice combination of humility from my sort of my dad and my pop's side, and then the German sort of strict guidelines and rules, but do it well, but do it fair, and don't take anything for granted, and don't take advantage of anyone. Just do things the right way and do it well. So I think that sort of combination. Then by the time I joined the Navy, I mean that was an amazing experience, because it took me, a young sort of 18-year-old that had discipline, because I was playing rugby league, I was playing cricket, I was in a team sport person, so that led me to have that sort of camaraderie. And when I joined the Navy, that's all it was camaraderie. It was just you and your oppos, as they call in the Navy. So that taking the respect around you and looking after everyone as a team and as a team member, that sort of, I knew that was my goal, and I tried to make everyone else's job around me as easy as possible by working harder and working extra when I was in the Navy to elevate me to be. I wanted people to look at me and go, Grizz, which was my nickname, which is after Grizzly Adams, the old TV show. So anyone with a nickname, anyone with a last name Adams was automatically a Grizz. So my dad had a nickname Grizz, my brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was my cousin.
That's Grizz.
That's Grizz, yeah. So our roasting company is now called, the roasting entity is Pedro and Grizz. So, I wanted people to look at Grizz and go, yeah, he's got my back, and shit, he does everything to the T, but does it well. Like, it doesn't have to be brilliant, but it's done to the highest standard. If I've got, if I had produce which was not the best quality, then I'd do my best to make it taste good.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you suffer from perfectionism, but it is this focus of high performance.
Yeah.
It's not getting in the way.
No.
You still get the work done.
Yep. And
it's hot, but as high as possible.
High as possible, yeah. High as possible.
And then you met your now wife, Katie, at school.
At school, yeah.
Coincidence that she went into the Navy as well?
She didn't join, but she worked for Department of Defence. So she was in the Navy sort of corporate side. Yeah. So she, I guess because I was in the Navy, it made sense to have, employment close to where I was working, whether it was at Cerberus in Victoria or at Cuttable in Sydney. So, yeah.
And then...
But we met in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
in Harvey Bay.
Grade 8. Yeah. Grade 8.
That's awesome.
She dumped me in grade 10.
Right. How long did that last before she realised?
A good year, I reckon.
Okay.
I think I did home ec in seniors in grade 11 to try
get it back.
Get it back, yeah. And
scones?
Chicken noodle soup or
there
something.
You go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we've been together ever since. So, yeah. It's nice because I sort of watched her grow. She watched me grow up, I guess, and get educated. And, when you know. It's just that it was in my gut. And those gut instincts, I trust my gut all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah, just do, yeah.
Have you had experience where you have gone against that and it hasn't worked out?
Yeah, many times. I did a cafe in Harvey Bay where I trusted the location and trusted the local knowledge, but my gut was telling me it's probably not the best location, but let's do it anyway, and it failed miserably.
Right.
Miserably. That's just one example. Yeah.
So you left the Navy early 2000s?
Yep.
Or mid 2000s?
Was it 2003?
Yeah.
Yeah, early 2000s, yeah.
What caused the shift to find yourself at a front of house cafe?
Well, when I joined take you back a step, I'm completely colourblind, like medically colourblind. So I didn't know that until I did all my early medical tests.
Reds are browns.
Yeah. It's, yellows are purple, and it's just those, when wires are close together, I'm shocking. So that meant I was very restricted on what I could join the Navy as. So it was going to be a, service sort of style, grunt work sort of work. So I ended up entering as a cook or a chef, and I didn't cook at the, never really cooked, never understood or anything like that. And when I joined the Navy, I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a lot. But I ended up sort of being I got one of my top marks in my intake, just because I gave a shit, wanted to learn, and I was like, I'm here, let's just do this well. And I think that's where it all started, and then I ended up being a highest ranked in my cookery school, got, great marks, great results. So then I just sort of just kept going from there, and just like, okay, people look up to someone, I think that sort of tall poppy syndrome that sometimes people that are really successful, I look at successful people and love it and want to know what they did. Like even my competitors that are successful in coffee now, I look at them and go, well, what are they doing? What can I learn from them? And how do I get to that point? Let's not hate them because they're good at what they do. Let's sort of embrace that, So I just went, well, I'm going to do the same and do the best I can. So it's one of those things that you've got a choice. You can either do it well or do it crap. It's up to you. Do you personally feel good about it, doing it in an inferior way or taking a shortcut, or do you want to get stuck in and do it really, really well to the best of your ability?
And I think also, even if the things that the true litmus test there on that idea is when no one will know. So if no one knows whether you've done it to the best of your ability or not, will you?
Correct. Yeah.
Because you'll know.
Exactly right. Yeah.
You put the head on the pillow and you'll know whether you've done the best of what you can.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a great litmus test as to what you're made of.
Yeah.
If there's a shortcut and no one knows you've taken the shortcut, if you take it, then that's the person that you are.
Yeah. 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 And, that's the thing. You can ask a lot of people, what time does Tim get out of bed? What time does he get to work? And the fact of the matter is no one really sees me arrive. That means is...
Why is that, Tim?
Because I'm there before them.
You're already there.
I'm already there.
So, okay, this is the first question I gave you at the start of the show, and we're 24 minutes in, so let's go with... we'll come back to this, to what happens post-Navy, but at the moment, what does a normal day look for you?
My general rule is I'm working 4 till 4.
Yeah, you told me that, and I love that.
I'm switched on 4 till 4. That's not saying I'm not doing anything after 4 p.m. It just means that I'm
focused on business.
Focused. That's what I'm there for. So generally speaking, I'll get to the roastery at 4 or just after 4, and it's quiet. I can sort of think clearly. I can see where I'm at. I can see what needs to be done and hasn't been done, and I can then get an understanding of what I want to do for the day as well. So I'm in at 4, and generally we have a, being a coffee roastery, our main goal is distribution. We're distributing product to cafes, Australia-wide, essentially locally a lot, obviously, but Australia-wide. So I'm in there with my ops managers there fairly early as well. So together we will work out how that day looks from an operational point of view. Once I've sorted the schedule for the deliveries, then I will head into the office and I generally try and punch out as much admin as I can before people start sort of rocking up around the 7, 8 o'clock marks. Between 7 and 8, most of the other team members arrive. So that's when I can, level out and see what needs to be done and start doing the admin. I'm very physical in what I do, so I don't like to sort of sit at the desk for too long. I like to get up and do multiple things, and being the boss I can. So I have that beauty of working out of what parts of the day I'm needed by my team members, and I want to be there for them. Like, my guys and girls are the most important part of my business because they're out on the road talking to all our customers. They're roasting the coffees. The roasting team's roasting the coffees, and the dispatch team are distributing on time, and my sales guys are communicating, and so I want to look after all them. So internally, I'm very much like the dad, I guess, and making sure that are they all sorted? Any issues? What's wrong? Let's hear it. And be open to feedback and criticism. Like, I'm always asking them for their, whether it's good or bad. I want to hear it. I need to hear it. So,
how do you create the culture that allows that in a safe place for them?
Just be approachable. Like, don't, make them feel like they're there. Don't make them feel like they're just working. Like, care, show you care. Like, and I've done that. I didn't know I was like that when I first started building a team, but the main reason I built the team was to have as many people around me working in specialty coffee as possible. That was my goal. That was why I started Tim Adams in 2010. We wanted to create a team because I won an Australian Barista Championship literally by myself, and it was lonely doing it. When I won, I turned around and there's Katie and me just by ourselves. There was no one behind us. So that felt very empty, even though I was at the top of my game and I was the best barista in the country. I felt
that was in 2009.
2009.
And you were working for someone else.
Yes.
And that's what you're referencing, that they weren't there with you. They weren't celebrating that with you.
No, there was no one there celebrating with me. Yeah, I didn't have that roasting team behind me. And, there was a period in my life where we felt a bit alone and that I hated that. I was like, I just busted my ass for the last 12 months preparing and understanding this competition, and I'm at the top now, and people all of a sudden go, who's this guy? Like, what? And because I was a bit of an unknown and didn't have that team, it was like, well, is this guy an imposter? Like, did he just fluke this win? What happened? How did this guy win, And so I hated that. So I've supported many people through competitions now. I want to help the industry as much as possible. I want to help my team members as much as possible, make them feel comfortable. And that's whether they're in the retail environment or in their wholesale department. It doesn't matter which area they're in. They're humans who have feelings, and let's work out and try and get the best out of them. That's the goal. And
so fill me into the gap between when you leave the Navy and when you, let's say, become Australia's highest decorated barista in 2009. We've got probably 5 or 6 years there.
Yeah.
Where do you go? How does that transition happen?
That transition happened because I did a chef's qualification in the Navy. So obviously when you get out of the Navy, you can
be a private chef.
You can be a chef. When I went through the Navy system, everything was then nationally recognised. Before, a couple of years before that, it was still old school where anything you learn in the Navy was the criteria and the modules were all around the Navy only. So it didn't really recognise your chef's qualification. You couldn't walk into a restaurant and say, I'm a chef.
Okay.
They'd look at you and go, no, you're a cook in the Navy.
Sure.
So there's, and that's for everything in the Navy now, and ADF, Australian Defence Forces. It's all, nationally recognised training.
Good to go.
Exactly. So, when you're a civilian, you can get a job as a chef. So, and I guess and this answer is probably goes back to what we're trying to do with coffee producers as well. Is why I go to Origin was because I wanted to talk about the coffee with them. I'm their customer, essentially, a coffee producer. So I wanted to chat to them about coffee. How many chefs get a chance to walk around a table and mingle with the customers? Hardly any. It does not happen. So I'm in the kitchen slogging it away, and I don't have my team of like I had in the Navy around me, and it's like, once again, I feel a bit lonely back here. What's going on? You go to the front of house and pop, it's buzzing. You've got baristas talking to their daily customers.
Sure.
And what happens is you get a shit coffee. The next day, and they're a regular, they come in and tell you, what did you do yesterday? It wasn't as good. What did you do? So then at that point, you've got that direct feedback, so then you can do it better. And that's what I needed. So I realised I wanted to go from back of house to the front of house, and I knew nothing about coffee. I knew nothing about drink service. So I had to figure it out, and just worked in a few coffee clubs to figure it out, a few local cafes, and then I ended up getting a job for the distributor for Douwe Egberts. So Douwe Egberts is a large Dutch company, and they roast a number of brands of coffee. So we were distributing their coffee, locally around the Sunshine Coast. I sort of fell into that job as a salesperson and coffee trainer. And I was like, well, I don't know a lot, so I better get up to speed real quick. So I started learning latte art, started learning how to texture milk properly, started understanding coffee origins, varietals, terroir, roast profiles. Okay, well, all this matters into one little cup of coffee. This is crazy. And at that point, what year are we in then? 2004? Coffee was just a roasted product. I'm like, it can't just be a roasted product. There's so much story here. I can see it in front of me. Where's the market heading? And then got really intrigued by the US coffee market, because although the US have a lot of shitty filter over roasted coffee, they have an amazing specialty coffee market. It's just small.
Interesting.
Right? So you've got Stumptown, you've got Intelligentsia, you've got these real boutique roasters, Blue Bottle, like doing really cool things in Portland and all around the country. It's like, this is quite cool. And their barista competitions were quite popular in those
Despite the fact
years.
that 90% of the country drinks
shit coffee.
coffee, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, this specialty market, what's that? And that's where in Australia, you could express that through barista competition. So that's when I was doing sort of the commercial sales with Dowie Egberts, and the company I was working for was a local company. And I sort of thought to myself, like, the only way to really progress is just to get in there and learn about specialty. And the best platform at that point was because there's no Instagram or Facebook in those days. So you had to physically learn yourself and get off your ass and learn it and do what you could. So I went to Melbourne, and made the decision to enter the Australian comps sort of in 2008. At that point, Dave Macon was 5 times Victorian champion. He'd won multiple Australian championships. I looked at Dave and went, this guy is a machine on stage. Like, how has he done it? And just sort of took as much information I could from those comps, took it away, and went, okay, this is what I need to do. And just threw myself into training. So I was
What's Katie doing at this
high
stage?
Performance. She's scratching her head going, what is he doing? Katie was working for local government, so local council, and then eventually she was working
Whilst you're at home, just latte art.
Yeah, I'm banging out Rosettas in the garage, learning about coffee. So I had a machine set up in the garage to train on. I had my own grinders, and I basically recreated the barista stage in my garage.
With the view, Tim, that'll lead somewhere after that, or are you just so fixated that that's the end goal? We're going for that.
I was like, okay, if I start doing this now, like someone like Dave Macon and Scott Callahan in those early days, funnily enough, Scotty owns 5 or 6 cafes in Hong Kong now. Like, just real high performance sort of guys. And I'm like, oh, that's what I need to get to. And I didn't know what the result would give me. All I knew is that I wanted to get there. My goal was to be an Australian champion. If it took me 3 years, it took me 3 years. I couldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'd still be competing now trying if I didn't win.
Great.
Problem was, I did it straight away. I figured out the formula. I figured out what was needed and went, all right, let's go. And because no one knew me, on stage I was, and when you say before, you only you know what you stuff up when you're performing, because no one else knows your routine. You've done it yourself. You've created it yourself, and it's up to you to deliver it. If you make a mistake or say a different sentence, or you're on stage, you're a little bit don't feel comfortable, only you know that. The judges are judging what they see in front of them. So, and I distinctly remember my Australian routine was, to me, from what I had trained to, was flawless. My coffees were flawless. I was flawless. I was having fun. I was motivated, and I just enjoyed the moment, and ended up winning as an underdog.
So the first time that you had, I know you had team sports and growing up, where you're heavily reliant on others. Was that the first time that you had actually? You did well it sounds like you did very well at the Navy academically as well, but it's just I guess another layer of evidence for you to go a high performance approach. And going all in on a project will result in a positive outcome.
Yeah, and a successful outcome. Yeah. And that was a turning moment for me, for sure, because I put the work in and I got the results. It's like, shit, that's not rocket science. That's a pretty straightforward formula. Why isn't everyone else doing this?
Work harder than everyone else.
Work
and
harder.
All of a sudden you get lucky. You get much more lucky. Yeah.
Funny that, yeah. And it's only like there's certain people that do, I guess, performance sort of education for a living, and high performance sort of education. And it's now down the track that I sort of listen to some of those either podcasts or speakers. Simon Sinek's a good one for that, and Eric Thomas from the US. Like, I listen to a bit of their stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, I've been doing this for years. I didn't even fucking know it.
Yeah,
I didn't even know this. Yeah. And I've sort of looked at okay, this is why this is where I've gotten to where I've gotten to, because I've done that. I get up in the morning, I work harder, I understand more, I try and do it the best I can, and I'm compassionate along the way.
Yep.
And I have integrity along the way. I make sure that I'm doing it correctly, therefore it's not going to hurt or affect someone else if I do it incorrectly,
And take ownership when it doesn't go to plan, or if you let someone down, or
Absolutely. I mean, my name's on my bag. You can't get any greater ownership. You know, there's been, companies that have had their last name or a tweak of their name on their bag. I'm like, well, what are we going to call my company? Let's call it Tim Adams Specialty Coffee. That's me.
you naked.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there. So it's raw. That's it. It's on my heart's on my sleeve. So I've got to die by the sword, so to speak, and stand by that bag. So it's up to me to make sure everything that goes into that bag is of the most highest quality.
Okay. So then you get that result out of that experience, and then you're lonely. You and Katie just celebrating with no support.
Well,
when does the conversation come saying, I think we should start our own thing?
Yeah. When I say lonely, so leading into the Australian Championships, I'm working with where my place of employment,
Sure.
and they're sort of helping and guiding me, right? So they're supporting me through that up until that Australian Championship sort of victory, I guess. But from we're happy for you to use the training room. We can donate some coffee. We can help you where we can. But knowledge-wise, couldn't offer anything. That was up to me. Criteria-wise, that was up to me. Building the routine, that's up to me. So all of it was up to me. I just had a venue where I could, launch it from, I guess. So the thing is, I won the Australian Championship within a commercial coffee. So nothing truly special, just a production style coffee coming off a production line from a commercial size roaster. And so I guess it proves that the training I did, I got the best out of that coffee.
Are you in that, and this is a nerd question, I guess, in that competition, are you assessed, what are you assessed on?
You're assessed on...
Is it not standard beans for everyone to use?
No.
So you get to choose the beans, choose the roast,
Yeah.
all of it.
All of it.
And they assess it, assuming on aesthetics and taste.
Yeah, aesthetics, taste, flavour, harmony, so if you've got to create a signature drink, which means you're adding ingredients to your espresso shot to get to improve it, I guess.
The hell do you, what would you possibly want to include in an espresso shot to make it any better than it already is?
It's one of the challenging things, isn't it? Yeah. And I knew leading into that comp that there were other competitors who had flown to Colombia, who had worked with a producer, who would have got like a very rare micro lot being only 2 or 3 bags produced at their farm.
Right.
Flew it in.
Far out.
Small roaster. And I'm rocking up with, commercial coffee. At that point...
Do you have to disclose where it is, or is it just...
No, you can talk about it. Yeah, I spoke about my coffee. Like, I was confident. I knew it could make it taste good. And I believed it tastes good. I didn't believe I could win. I believed I could give it a good shot, but I wanted to learn from the experience, right? I knew, okay, I'll get to that point, but there's so much more I can bring back.
This will just be a feedback loop.
Yeah, we'll work on it from here. And so by winning, it's like, holy shit, the formula worked, the coffee worked, the extreme measures I took to get to here worked. So, yeah, let's go to the World Barista Championships and do well. One of the things I knew is that I didn't want to take a commercial product to a World Barista Championships. I'm representing the Specialty Coffee Association of Australia. I'm the Australian champion. Let's get a better coffee. Let's dig deeper. I've got the ability to train. I know that. I've got the ability to work till 3 a.m, training on the routine and working on my shots and being, I was the best manual doser of coffee in Australia in that year because I knew exactly how my grinder worked, how many revolutions it took to grind exact gram. This is before scales. This is before we use scales. This is before we use distribution tools.
Tamp.
Now. Yeah, there's auto tamp. This is all manual. And I was manually doing this. I knew my grinder better than the manufacturer of the grinder, So I knew all that would work at the world stage. I just needed a better coffee. Because at that point, people knew what I'd used to win the Australian title. So I wasn't rocking up to a World Barista Championship with a commercial coffee. No way. Like that to me, it was like, oh shit, I need to take this a little bit more seriously now. So I'd spoken to the commercial company. I lined everything up. I said, look, I need this. This is what I need. I want this. I want that. 2 weeks before going, I'm hassling for this coffee. Where are we at? Like, I need my coffee because I'm trying to build my routine around this coffee. And 2 weeks prior to that, I had a practice run in Brisbane in front of local coffee industry before I went to the Worlds, right? So I basically was holding all my information back on my routine. So I was already starting to think, shit, I'm not going to be able to do this because I don't have all my ducks lined up yet. And then I get news that the coffee that I'm going to use is just off their production line again. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate the sponsorship money. I don't want it. I'll pay for my own, ASCO, the Australian Specialty Coffee Association, and some other sponsors support the Australian champion, which I got great support from ASCO, and I got great support from Da Vinci Syrups, Cafetto. The owners and the people I worked with at that time are still, I respect them so highly that I would do anything for those companies now if they asked me. That's how sort of important I knew it was for me at that time. The commercial company, we're talking 10 grand, I think, or something like that. I was like, don't worry about it. You can keep it. I now have to find a coffee to take to this WBC. So I need to focus on that now. That's what I'm representing. This is my obligation. This is what I signed up for. Let's go to the Worlds and deliver the best coffee we can, I can. My employer at the time didn't want me to take any other roasted coffee other than what was from that commercial product. I said, okay, cool, that's fine, but I'm not doing that. So, yeah. So Saturday morning rocks around, and I'm about to head to Brisbane, knowing that 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out, and I'm talking 6 months of preparation needs to be put into a WBC. And some of the lengths that people go to now is extraordinary. 2 weeks out, I rock up to grab all my stuff to go to this run through in Brisbane where there's going to be, I don't know, like hundreds of people watching, and I'm the Australian champion, and I'm locked out. I'd been locked out of my training room. I'm like, what am I going to do now? So I've called my employer, and he's like, well, you can get your stuff out, but that's it. We're done. I'm like, yeah, damn straight we're done. We are done. I get it. Fine, you've made your call. That's cool. You don't want me to be a part of it, or you don't want me to, you want me to use a commercial coffee, I'm not doing it. I respect that. I respect your decision. Let's just part ways. And basically I resigned on the spot. I think I was fired. I'm not sure which one. It was probably a bit of both. But got my stuff, went to Brisbane with Katie. We're driving down. I'm like in shock. I'm like, I don't know. I've got no routine. I've got no coffee. I wasn't really concerned about the job because I knew I'd get through. I'd figure out a way to get through this. I rock up to Brisbane. I do the run through at Veneziano Coffee Roasters. It was a disaster. Like, it was the worst thing you could do. And there was judges who'd flown in to help critique my routine before I went to the Worlds. So after the first run through, where we're in the debriefing room and the judges are like, okay, so what's going on? And I just burst into tears and said, I can't do this. Like, I don't have anything. I don't have a job. I don't have a coffee. I don't have anything. So if this is what the Australian Barista Champion should feel like, this is fucked. I don't want a part of it. I don't want a part of your industry. I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm in tears, right? And Katie's in tears, and we're freaking out. And some of the people who judge me are still some of my closest friends, right? They just got me through. I had a decision to make. I was either going to walk away from this, or I was going to go, you know what? Let's figure this out and do it quickly. So Peter and Penny Wolf at the time were working, and Peter owned Veneziano Coffee. He said, look, I'll roast your coffee. We'll find something. The training room here at Veneziano is all yours. You can train here for 2 weeks. I knew I still had sponsorship money from Cafetto. I knew Ascot paid my airfares. I knew that Da Vinci Syrups were there for me. Obviously, I'd lost a large chunk of money from a commercial sponsor. I lost a large chunk of money. Then I had a milk supplier pull out on me that was going to fund some money. I'm like, yep, don't need it. That's fine. I'll figure it out. And some of those companies I don't work with today because of that. Pure principle, I don't work with. Don't do it. Busted my balls for 2 weeks. Like, busted my balls. The problem was in a week's time, I would have had to do the routine in front of everyone again. So I had
in Brisbane.
In Brisbane. So I had like a week to prepare. And we were still living on the Sunshine Coast, so I was driving down.
I was going to ask you whether you were staying down there.
I was sleeping on the training room floor. Like sleeping on the floor, literally, just day and night. That's all I did. And Katie's like, you know what? This is what you have to do right now. For us, you just do it. Just get stuck in. And so I did. And a week later, I did in front of the same people, the same judges, and I smoked it. Like, perfect. The signature drink was awesome. Everything was great. And I turned it around because I think in my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know this shit's going to hit the fan here. So I need to come up with a plan B or have some sort of plan B. So I kind of drew a little bit on that plan B when I prepared for that week and sort of, got some of the information that I knew I wanted to say and just sort of used that and then built the routine around that. And then, 2 weeks we went to the WBC and, went on the world stage and we got there and I think I placed 13th in the world. And some people say that's an unlucky number. To me, I was born on the 13th.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah, this is amazing. But it was funny. When I was there, I knew the commercial part of the industry had the shits with me. The specialty market didn't really understand me because I'd used commercial, but then I was kind of not really affiliated with anyone. I was independent. So it was like no one was still talking to me. And once again, I'm at the top of my game and I've just competed at the world and I'm as lonely as all hell.
You're 13th greatest barista at the moment.
On the planet.
On the planet.
On the planet. On planet Earth.
and you feel alone in your industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, so Katie and I think had a week holiday after that, and, went to Disneyland and all that sort of thing. And, we'd already we'd built a house, so we had a mortgage back here in Australia. And we're like, okay, we're on the flight home and we're really scratching our heads thinking, what are we going to do? Like, what's the next step here? And I'm like, I even considered rejoining the Navy just to be like, you know what, this is not how it's meant to be. There's, I've worked my ass off. The team's not, I don't feel like there's anyone around me, so let's just do that. And she was happy for me to do that if that's what was the best move for us. And I thought about it and, I started to get a few little job offers sort of come in. People knew I was unemployed. People knew I'd done well. People at that point started to figure out this guy's got a bit of ticker. He's got a bit of integrity, which I did. Like that, the whole reason I was in that position because I had morals and I had integrity and I knew what the best thing was to do before I went to the Worlds. At that point, I still am the only Queenslander to ever win the Australian title. And because we're talking 2009, like I knew where the market was heading as far as specialty coffee went, and I'm like, okay, I've just been through hell. We've been through hell. We've had some success. We've had some disappointments. I'm unemployed. So what? Let's now give back to the local community. Let's give back to coffee. Let's give back to Queensland. Let's get behind Queensland because at that point, Melbourne had the best coffee. They still claim they do. So Queensland was a bit of a laughing stock in the industry as far as coffee went. And I'm like, let's build specialty coffee in Queensland. That's our starting point. That's what we aim to do. And I fast forward to where we are now, and I feel that I contributed to the culture and what specialty coffee is in Queensland and why people know of or may have heard of me who are in the industry is because of, laying those platforms and saying, yeah, we can have great coffee up here and let's start educating people. And even after all that, I still went back and competed twice. I've won 3 Queensland titles and I've placed 5th at the Nationals and 4th at the Nationals since. But it's only when you go back to do it again that you realise how hard it is to win and how difficult it is and how everything needs to line up. The world, everything needs to be perfect on that day for you to be number one. So I understood the whole process a little bit better once I'd lost a few as well. So, but it's difficult to go from wanting to build into being the best to fast forwarding to being the best straight away when I was still learning myself. So that was challenging. So I spent a year at Pioneer Coffee at Yandina to just understand roasting and specialty coffee a little bit more. And Pioneer was one of the early sort of small roasters on the coast. So I wanted to learn from them. And I learned very quickly. I'm a fast learner, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'm getting this now, and I get what I need to do now. And we need to do our own thing, and we need to educate as many people about specialty coffee as possible. And that's where we bought a coffee van, and we started just selling coffee on the streets, essentially, just like mobile van, door to door, blue collar, white collar, didn't care. I just wanted to understand what people liked about coffee, what they enjoyed, what they didn't enjoy. And it was a great testing tool because...
With a view to go anywhere after that?
Yeah, the view was to build wholesale.
Okay, roasting.
And the reason for that is because I wanted to take the pretentiousness out of coffee. Specialty coffee to me is, there's a lot of things that need to happen for it to be classed as a specialty. There's certain criterias, but I don't think anyone can drink specialty coffee. That means anybody should be allowed to buy it off me. And I'm willing to educate anyone who wants to come along with the journey with me. And that's where Tim Adams as a brand, I had to build the brand. Like, we had to build that brand. Back then it was like, oh, that's Tim Adams, yeah, you're the barista champion. But it wasn't Tim Adams, specialty coffee. Whereas now it's Tim Adams specialty coffee. Oh, there's a dude behind that brand. What the hell?
Who also won something back
then. And it's like, it took me years to build up the brand. But now it's like it's so dominant that people are like, well, they have no idea. There's a, 40-something-year-old dude behind it who drove it and the reasons why we drove it to where it is,
So tell me, in those early days then, or at least, I guess, as a shape of growth for the listener and for me, let's go with, if you can, what's your unit of measurement for growth? Is it roasting per tonne?
We started our roasting company in 2013, end of 2013. Yeah. So there's a couple of years there where I had enough input, but I knew I needed more input into what we're doing, which is why we took it all obviously in house and did it ourselves. And
yeah, I guess this is the thing about coffee, right? I think, and for someone like yourself who's so attention to detail, so focused on high performance, for a cup of coffee, which is the end consumer.
Yeah.
You go all the way back to origin.
Yeah.
The type of climate that season of coffee bean is grown in.
Yeah.
The quality of soil, I guess, doesn't change too much in that region. The way that they farm and harvest, timing of that harvest, how that's packaged, timing from being packaged to getting to Australia, to you as the roaster, you collecting it, how you store it. You explained to me on the floor that it has to be moved, constantly moved relative to the humidity and the temperature, on the coast, and then timing and obviously the variance of control, or at least how you roast it, to get you to a roasted bean, to then how you package it, for then to get delivered at a relatively short period of time from roast date to delivery date.
Yep.
To then left to the coffee company or the cafe.
Yeah.
To properly grind it, extract it.
So that at that point a barista's now touching it.
Yes.
Yeah.
An individual human that's out of your control now.
Yep.
For most part.
I'm walking away. Yeah. Well, it's essentially. Yeah.
And then for that person to extract it or grind it properly, tamp it properly, extract it properly, froth the milk properly.
Yep.
And then pour it and deliver it in the right experience. I don't think there's so many. I mean, it's probably similar to being a chef as well in terms of that process. But for someone who's so not controlling, but so focused on high performance on every element, it's not surprising to me that you wanted to take control over everything. There's that relationship between, I think, your personality and and focus on high performance to then going, well, I want to be able to. I don't want to outsource the roasting part. I want to bring that in-house because I believe that I not can do it better, but I want to control it because I want to focus on that high performance.
Yeah.
That's the motivation there at that time?
Yeah, most definitely.
Because I'd imagine there's a fair amount of risk there in terms of plant and equipment.
Oh man, absolutely. It's one of the hardest things you can do. Like I felt still one of the most challenging things we have created is that whole roasting and making sure all those little points you've just mentioned are getting met all the way along. Like it's so hard. Like,
and it's not a fixed recipe where it's constantly moving relative to the temperature or relative to the humidity.
Yeah, and don't forget, there's moisture content in that green bean. So that moisture content is changing constantly. So you're not even controlling the seed. Like the seed is its own living, organism really before it hits the drum or before it hits the roaster. Yeah. So, we were roasting and still roast on a Probat, which was built in the early 70s. Because awesome. It's cast iron, it's just an amazing piece of machinery that made sense, and we've modernized it, but it's roasting amazing coffee still. But that it took Pedro, who's my business partner in the roasting company, years to find that roaster. Luckily nowadays, you can buy those vintage styles, but brand new through Kirscher and Mouser. So we have 2 Kirscher and Mouser roasters, which are Probat, and the larger Probat one. So, we're invested as much money as we can into that roasting equipment alone, Yeah, you look at, there's a Tim Adams wine.
I don't know that.
I haven't met Tim, but wine buffs love meeting me, and oh my God, your name's Tim Adams, and you should get together. And then it's funny when a lot of colleagues or clients or friends go, hey, there's a Tim Adams wine, and I've at least 2 or 3 times a year I'll get a random bottle of Tim Adams wine sent to me in a photo. Did you know there was a Tim Adams wine? I'm like, yeah, I knew the Tim Adams. But
wonder how much coffee he gets.
The effort that they go to, or a vineyard, they've just got to tell you what temperature to have the bottle. You've just got to open it and pour it into a glass.
Particularly as well now the cork's out.
Yeah.
There's no humidity issue.
And us poor coffee guys then have to take that bag of coffee, age it to perfection. We now freeze coffee before serving just to snap it at its right, critical point. How you brew it can destroy 4 or 5 years of work from a coffee producer in one instant, And
your name's on it.
And my name's on it. So
this is a shit coffee.
I'm so jealous.
This is a shit coffee today. Yeah. Where is the bean for Tim Adams?
This is a Tim Adams issue now. Like that's his. He did this.
Yeah.
Whereas the wine guy just has to, the instructions are on the bottle.
Unscrew.
It's easy. Yeah. So I'm quite jealous of that.
So talk to me about then. Yeah. How do we measure the growth of the business?
Yeah.
So from
doing a podcast with you, I guess takes me to that level.
First year, what was the output of roasting?
Contract roastery wise, we're doing about 350 kilos a week.
Okay.
Right. We opened Lambkin Lane Espresso Bar in 2013.
You and Katie.
Yep, and James and Angela, who's my business partners in the roasting company. And we had a goal of doing no food. Our very first day of opening, we got carved up on social media, the Facebook actually. It was the only sort of media platform that we're never going to survive because you can't just survive on coffee alone in a cafe.
Just an espresso bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We're like one of the first to do
that's cool.
No food. We're in a back street alleyway of, Caloundra. So all we had was great coffee. So that's all we had to make this thing work, at that time, I wanted to start building or testing, I guess, this model as well. So there wasn't a lot of Tim Adams branding around. We were Lambkin Lane focused and just focused on the coffee. And I guess at that time we were doing about 300 to 350, and I was wholesaling out the back. And then once we opened a year into it, we kind of knew, okay, let's do the roasting facility. But we jumped probably another 150, 200 kilos a week just by opening Lambkin because of the tangible experience people now had. They can come in and talk to us about the product, and
they can buy it from
they can taste it, they can experience it, and that just immediately helped with the wholesale volume and the understanding of what we were doing. We could talk and educate about where we're coming from with coffee. It was that face-to-face chat, It wasn't the chef in the back. It was the barista at the front, talking about it. And then as soon as we started roasting our own, our volume doubled in the first 12 months. because we had control. And that to me was like, it's so important to having that control. And then, okay.
Is that when, are you tapping on local cafes to stock at that point?
Yeah, at that point, yeah. Local cafes. And we then, got a distributor set up in Townsville, distributed in Rockhampton that looks after Central Queensland, and they could look after the customers as well. And so, that's when it just started to grow and naturally grow. And we've never had hard sales tactics because it's word of mouth and it's quality and its reputation that it basically has grown the whole business to this day. Is all those core values of those key quality focuses and people trusting that they are getting a sustainable product that's been so well looked after in that sealed bag by the time they grab it. The market knew and understood where we're coming from. But it was a journey to get there because, a lot of commercial companies were still selling in those days. So it took a while to get that, specialty coffee into the market.
Never went to grocery stores?
I never will, no. No groceries because I can't control the shelf life.
Sure.
I can't control how old it is. I don't want to peg our brand and our quality into an instant style of market either. So we don't do a canned coffee that's got our brand on it. We won't do a pod that's got our brand on it. We won't do, a pre-grounded parachute bag pour over without our brand on it. I'm happy to sell those products without our brand on it, but not Tim Adams won't be on it. No, I want to be, we want to make sure that it's been roasted to perfection, aged to perfection, and then that consumer, it's up to them to get the best out of it.
Yeah, pre-grind.
No. We can for small in-store, yeah, and customers will grind little bags for them. But we're even educating our retail customers, just buy more frequently. That's, it's treat it like your local bakery. You want to get fresh bread, get your fresh coffee.
Yeah.
But then, we also educate on the timing of that coffee. So, coffee can be too fresh too. So we try and get our wholesale cafes partners to... We will age at least a week's worth of coffee in our facility first before dispatch. That's the goal. So it's landing in a cafe 7 to 9 days off roast, and then from basically day 10, 12 through to day 30 is when you'll get the best out of the coffee. Okay. And most cafes will turn over in that time frame.
What was the output per week before you made the decision to move across the road to a bigger facility?
Oh, we'd already outgrown that. Yeah, we were pushing 5.5 ton a week. Yeah.
You're so nonchalant about that, Tim, in the sense that you've grown from Caloundra days and you started out and you're going to, 750 kilos a week and then doubled that. So you're 1 point something ton. Mm-hmm. And now you before you decided to expand even further, you're at 5.5 ton a week.
Yeah.
Do you reflect on that?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot. But if you want to move forward, you don't really look back, do you? You sort of keep looking forward. And I guess I don't want to sort of... I mean, I there's people around me who appreciate the journey as much as I do because they've seen it from the very beginning, and seen that growth and the thing is, the bag of coffee that you buy now at that volume is the same quality as when I was doing 20 kilos off the back of the coffee van a week. 20 kilos a week is what... That was our first ordering, 20 kilos. But the quality's better now at that volume. So what we're doing is scalable if you're following your core principles and your core values. And I guess that's why we invest in going to Origin and having that relationship-based coffee, because that got us through COVID as well, those relationships. We've got... we work with farmers in Brazil who we committed to buying their coffee for 2 or 3 years on contracts. So that's a big investment by us and them, but they, that got us, all of us through COVID, that because we had those contracts still coming and flowing, so that we trusted that process and we still do to this day. And now we're at a size where, we're not super large, but we're big enough where we can now make a difference, and that's the message for me, is to make a difference in the industry and make a difference at Origin level as well, and make a difference with pay rates for baristas, and all my guys they're paid above award. No one's sitting on award with me. Like, our company, it's like a chain, right? So each part of that chain needs to be as strong as the next part. And you look at the first part of the chain as the coffee farmer. Then you've got the importer or exporter, importer, exporter. Then you've got us, a roasting company. Then you've got the cafe owner. Everyone needs to make money through that chain. If someone is heavier than the next, the chain will break. Or if one is weak, then the chain will break, right? So we want to make sure that it's sustainable. So our coffee is affordable, specialty coffee. It's at great pricing, but we're paying everyone through that chain effectively. And that's important for us because you won't be sustainable if it's not. It's like, it's like winning Barista Comp too early. Like, once I started visiting Origin, it's only now that I've looked back and gone, those years of visiting coffee producers, although it was, tiring and hard work for me to get there and understand it, that's why we're still there, and that's why they're still there. We need to get off our ass and go there and support, because what we're learning now is vital to the next 20 years. And it pisses me off that there's companies that still claim or say they're doing direct trade coffee and sustainable coffee. They wouldn't even know what a boarding ticket looked like to Central America because they've never been. It's, you got to go. Like, even if they're my competitors, I encourage them to go and just keep helping where they can and donate. We have, I don't talk about it a lot, but our Chipola project.
Yeah, talked about the Chipola project.
We knew 10 years ago we needed to make a difference at Origin, even if it was a small difference, right? We needed to make a difference. And
what did you see on the ground level that was needing to change?
Just that cycle of, like a coffee tree needs to be looked after all year round.
Right.
All year round. Like, you need to fertilize directly after harvest. As the coffee starts to flower, you need to, fertilize again. You need to prune. You need to make sure it's, the shade is right. You need to nurture the trees and essentially farm them. So a coffee producer gets into this trap where they're loaning money from the banks to do all that. Then if they're not paid correctly at, when the coffee is harvested and they sell it, they've got no money to reinvest back into their farm again. So they need to reinvest essentially back into their business. And so they're paying all their bank debts down, and then they end up with no money. Then they've got to get another loan to keep that moving. We thought, okay, let's just start donating where we can to, let's just isolate 2 or 3 producers where we can send money over early with no obligation. They don't have to sell us the coffee at the end of the harvest. They don't, they can sell to anyone in the world they want to. And Finca La Jolla, Consuelo was the first farm we worked with, and we sent, money for pre-harvest techniques, and our Chipola project funded that. And she got great harvest the year after, which was amazing. And the year after that, we started to see some climate change, and essentially frost completely wiped out her whole production the year after. And she ended up, instead of producing 40 or 50 bags of exportable coffee, she produced 3.
Wow.
And everyone sort of said to me, like, that seemed like a waste of money for you. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, how do you think the coffee farmer feels? Like,
yeah,
that's not a waste for us. That's a lesson to keep helping because of that purpose, that reason. And because she had some money from us, she got through those years. And we've got a beautiful photo of La Jolla from that moment in time where the frost had destroyed her crop to the year after, where we helped, contributed to helping again, to having this fruitful, we planted new varieties. We planted Paraneema and more Pacus, and she has a beautiful thriving plantation. Like, that's clear proof. That's just one example.
The Chipola project is, I guess, putting the human interest first.
Yes.
The importance of the human.
Yeah. Looking after the team,
yeah.
Looking after every member of that chain, looking after the team around you. And before COVID, we were visiting Brazil yearly, sometimes twice a year. There was a farm in Aguas Paulistas region called Fazenda Frontera, and it's owned by Ellen. And over the years, we'd seen her. The first time I visited, her coffee trees were thriving, flourishing. She had beautiful varietals. And by the third year of visiting, I'd noticed and said to Luis, who's an agronomist who works on the ground there and works with farmers, and we purchased his coffee as well. I said to him, what's going on with Ellen's farm? Like, it's looking sick. And he said, there's like a little ant. It's almost like an ant/spider bug that basically is affecting her plants. And she can't, when you spray, you can spray the top, but it's not spraying underneath where it's affecting the stem of the tree and the leaves. And I said, well, why doesn't she spray? Like, why doesn't she buy a spray? She goes, well, she can't afford it. And like hours earlier, I'd just been shown a beautiful drying patio that all the profits she had from the money that, not we donated, but from us purchasing her coffee, had contributed to her farm. And that to me was amazing. And I was like, oh, that's incredible. Like, I didn't know she could do that. And they're like, well, that's why you're here, because you can understand what they're going through yearly, and you can see, she now had a beautiful drying bed. It was undercover, so if it rained, it wouldn't affect her coffee drying. And they're for some of the things that paying her more for the coffee contributed to her investing back into her farm. And now, 3 years down the track, her farm's looking sick. I'm like, what is going on? So this sprayer was, I think it was $8,000 US. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I want to see what I can do to help here. Like, how do we get this right? So came back to Australia, figured out a plan. We wanted to hold a barista smackdown on the coast. We held it at the island, espresso bar at Majimba. Yep. I got Sasha, one of my good friends, Sasha Sestic from Honor Coffee up. He's won the world title before, and I know him just through competing. He's high performance. He's a good chat. Matt Lewin, current Australian champion. These are close friends, but they flew up and were guest judges. And Tilly, who works for us as well, she was a judge, and we really hyped this event up. And
she's decorated as well.
She's decorated, yeah. I was like, okay, well, this is the goal. This is what we need to do. I mean, this is why we're doing this smackdown.
Raising money.
We're raising money and the Chipotle Project is trying to get this happening. And basically, whatever we got to as a donation, the Chipotle Project was going to match.
Great. Just
to get to that $8,000 USD. And we ended up raising everything just through this. I think we chucked in a couple of grand, but the community raised this, raised the money for this sprayer. Then Capricornio put in money as well, for the Brazil company we work with, and they contributed, and Ellen now has this sprayer with our logos on it, Chipotle Project.
Like, so good.
It's just amazing. Like, the community just did it. I had wholesale partners just saying, hey, I heard you're trying to raise money for this purpose, just here you go. We can't make it to the night, but here's some money for it. And everyone just chipped in, and we got to... So, there's community focus, like going back to the beginning, a lot of people think community is, okay, what am I helping local schools with? What am I helping local community with? I think community is bigger than that. I think community can be that, obviously, but for us and what we're doing for coffee, this is where I see a part of that community is in these countries that need our help, Yeah. And I've got probably 5 or 6 stories similar to this that, the project has done and contributed. And we don't run around screaming to everyone, this is what we're doing, because we're doing that after dark, right? Sure. We're doing that in the early hours. We're doing it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because at night when we go to bed, we know we can make a difference, and we're making a difference. I don't need kudos for it. I just, it's a part of who I am and what our company stands for.
It's so good.
It's vital, yeah.
So you have 2 kids as well.
Yeah.
And there's so many, obviously, key takeaways that you're imparting, I guess, subconsciously to your kids about how dad works and his attention to detail and team and culture.
Yeah.
What do you want? What's your goal as a father to them?
It's a great question. I want them to respect their colleagues and respect their mum as much as I do. I mean, Katie's been like my guardian angel on my shoulder throughout, just being there with me, all those journeys. She's been telling me, you can do this and you are meant to do this, and it's all about you and us, and I'm standing here behind you. Whatever you need to do, just do it. Like, I trust you, and go with your gut. And even now, like, she's done some amazing things with yoga. Like, she studied yoga from when Jack was born, and I was like, okay, she's done this for me. I'm going to do this for her. And she's one of the and I don't do yoga, But I can stand here and sit here and say she's one of the best yoga teachers I've ever heard or listened to. Just her projection through her voice, you know. And you can ask anyone who's done her classes. She's just incredible at it. And our kids now know, like, they have I say 4 to 4 is my work day, because from 4 onwards, work is second, and my kids and family and my wife are first. That's their time. So I'll do what I can to be there for them. But yeah, I need, you know, from a father, like, just respect everyone, and, you know, don't take people for granted, and work hard. Like, my daughter, she's 12 and she swims 5 mornings a week, and Katie doesn't have to tell her to get up. She's up making her bed, and, you know, she now has that work ethic and drive and commitment, and, you know, wants to do well. And when she, you know, we've got a school, you know, where they go to school is right near our house now. And when she went to that school, she was below average on what she needed to be. Getting there, she was, you know, sort of like a C student. She didn't have a best. She's not very academic, bit like me, but has work ethic. And her last report card in grade 7, which is obviously now high school, she's sitting on an B+, A-.
Amazing.
Within 3 years. And I'm like, that's okay. We, as a, you know, my wife and I are obviously, she's learning from us and understanding where we're coming from. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world. You've just got to outwork the person next to you, and outwork yourself too. Like, do it for you. And, you know, and, you know, swimming's a pretty lonely sport, but one of the things she loves about it, she's in a squad. You know, they're named squads for a reason. They go up in squads, blue squad, bronze squad. Like, you know, she has a team around her, but she's competing obviously individually as well. But, and, you know, my little fella Jack is like, he hates the Dolphins, right? So we watch rugby league, and I said to him, why do you hate?
How old is he now?
He's 8.
Okay.
And he plays rugby at school, but he's a massive rugby league fan. And my whole family has always followed the Dragons, St. George, and last year we finished second last. Had a terrible year, but he has this passion that he hates the Dolphins, and I'm like, they're a new team that I thought they're going to be our second team. Why do you hate them? And he said, first or second game we watched last year, Dad, they thrashed the Dragons. And I said, yeah, but everyone thrashed the Dragons last year. But he's such a Dragon supporter that came from me. Like, he learnt that from me, and I'm like,
he's so loyal.
Yep, he's like, he's got your back. Like, he's the you know, he loves his mates. You know, will talk to anyone. Really outgoing. You know, he's a different personality to me. I think he's slightly different, but he, you know, he's loyal, and he's got that in him now, that he's a loyal Dragon supporter for life. Like, he's proud. He's only 8.
Off topic, you referenced that you're the only Queenslander that has won the national coffee championship. Mm-hmm. Born in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Are you a blue or a maroon?
What do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I presume you're a blue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because I'm loyal.
Yeah.
And
so that must be fun with your son.
Yeah. It's challenging. But he's a maroon, yeah. And Katie's like, well, why are you not supporting the Queenslanders? Like, I follow Queensland in cricket. Like, I love Queensland, right,
rules.
you know?
Yeah.
But I can't, because I grew up hating the Maroons. Like, I was loyal. My dad and my family were like Dragon supporters and Blue supporters, so I just can't do it.
Well, that's unfortunate for you.
It's very, it actually is unfortunate.
At the moment.
The success hasn't been great. But yeah,
that's
I'm a Blue for sure. Yeah.
It would be remiss of me as well, before we go into the final questions, about Flagship.
Yep.
That's where, I mean, I was first introduced to you with Husk and Honey in Nambour in 2013, and then realised that I started frequenting Flagship, which is this name of the store or of the cafe that you run or you own.
Yeah.
I didn't, maybe initially I thought this is just a cafe that stocks Tim Adams specialty coffee.
Yeah.
And then I realised very quickly, I was like, I've never experienced a coffee like this. The attention to detail of all the staff, but of the process, I'd never seen. And the end product was incredible. And I'm an espresso drinker, so I don't have play around with the milk.
Yeah.
There's too many controllable issues there.
Yeah.
And then I talked to you on the roasting floor about it, and you were like, "Oh, we had this. My wife and I had a list,
Yeah.
almost like a list of goals that you want to achieve."
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, and talk to me about Flagship.
I'll talk about the goals first.
Sure.
When we're in that sort of dark area where we were like coming back from the Worlds in 2009, and we didn't know what we're going to do, and I guess we sort of made the decision that we didn't want to give up everything we've just gone through, because it obviously happened for a reason. The reason, we've got to find that reason, and we've got to find it quick to make a difference. And one of the main reasons that I think it happened is because I was put here to touch as many people in coffee and educate as many people in specialty coffee as possible. Not knowing down the track that I'd be helping it at an origin level, for example. Like that obviously I think was a part of that calling that I sort of didn't realise at the time, but obviously makes sense now, and do it from the Sunshine Coast. Do it in a regional area where it's needed. Like it's important. Do it in Queensland even. Like I could have flown to Sydney and got a job working for a large-ish company, but I chose not to. We wanted to do it from the Sunshine Coast. And so Katie's like, okay, well, let's put a list together. What's your dream goal list within this industry you're trying to make a killing out of, or make a career out of as a coffee professional? And so we wrote this list, and we've just been through some shit with building a house as well, and some legal stuff, and it was one of those, it was a dream home, so we didn't give up on it. We pushed through it, and we used some of that, drawing and learnings from the past to get through the tough times. And we're packing up boxes from the old house that we're moving out of to move into the new one, and I was like, oh, what's this? So I opened up an old shoebox, and there's the list that Katie and I had written in Katie's handwriting. Win 5 Queensland championships. And I was like, oh, shit, I haven't won 5. Oh, hang on a minute. No, I've won 3, and Tilly's won 5. And I coached Tilly. That's 8. Okay, that's cool. Win a World Barista Championship. Okay, well, I haven't won a World Barista. Hang on a second. I trained Tilly. She went to China, won a national okay, technically we've won an international coffee competition. That's great. Start a cafe from scratch. Yep, done that. We opened up Lambkin Lane, and that was highly successful. Build our dream home. Sure, we're moving into that now. Okay, we guess we can tick that one off. We've literally handcrafted this house that is special to us, and is going to be a home our kids can grow and bring their kids to and visit mum and nan and pop, and we've got that. Beautiful. Own a roasting company. Okay, well, we've done that. Yep, we've ticked that box. And then one of the other ones was roast 3 ton of coffee out of that roastery a week. Really? Yeah. Like specific tonnage, like one of those measures that you mentioned. I don't bang on about the tonnage, but it definitely is it's how we measure.
We're close to 6 now.
Yeah.
So
we try to measure our success through that, because then we know that tonnage can make a difference somewhere and to a number of people. So that's important to us. So we had no children at that point. So limit to 2 children, 2 healthy children, and educate them as best as we can. They're in one of the top schools on the Sunshine Coast now, and they're thriving in what they're doing. So, and I sort of looked at the list and I hadn't looked back on the list, but I knew it was there, and I knew that one day I'd find it and see how we went. And we've nailed that list, which is incredible. The thing is now is, what do you do when the list is done? Like, what's next?
Well, you're moving across the road into this ridiculously massive new roastery area.
Yeah.
With an espresso bar.
That was the last thing.
Yeah.
That was the last point, actually, is have a roaster, have a roastery and a cafe together.
Yeah.
And that will open in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But that was the last goal.
Yeah. So it's an espresso bar that looks through into the roastery, which is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's the last piece.
That's the last piece of the puzzle. Yeah. And then, you know what? I think that's our starting point from there.
Time for a new list.
Yeah. I think that's the, when you wake up in the morning and you feel that you're just starting and you're young and you've got so much more to do. I think that's where I'm at is I've got so much more to do and achieve, and it's going to be a big list, but I think it's there.
So good.
Yeah.
All right. Final 5 questions. Quick fire. I've been told by Cody that the previous guests aren't as quick as we'd like them to be.
Really?
The answers.
The answers need to be
To the
shorter?
quick fire, yeah. Or just, don't need an explanation. Just go for it.
Oh, okay.
What does success mean to you?
Obviously, success is different to the next person and the next person and the next person. It's not a monetary value. It's knowing that I can go to bed at night knowing that I've done everything I can for that day, and that I can sleep. And I've always been a great sleeper. I've noticed now, like down the track, is that I've outworked myself for that day. That's my success.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What does happiness mean for you?
My wife is happy and my kids are happy.
That's a great answer. Favorite book or most gifted book?
Stephen King, The Stand.
And a party of 5, which is a new question that we're introducing, is 4 people, dead or alive, not family or friends, that you would invite to a dinner party.
Matthew Hayden.
Proud Queenslander. And Maroon.
Yeah. Keith Urban. Ice Cube. Love a bit of gangster rap. And Simon Sinek.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And finally, Tim Adams, a guest that you think we should have on the show, famous or not.
Sally Desh from HRM.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. This has been I've just loved this.
I hope so.
Yeah. And I don't know. As I said, I'm still fanboying out, but I really appreciate your time. I know that it's soon to be 4:00 this afternoon and you'll be clocking off, but I really appreciate it. And I can't, from wholeheartedly looking forward to seeing what the next list looks like for you. And it's going to be amazing, no doubt.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. If you're listening to this at a cafe, please feel free to share it with the barista. Until next time, peace.